Hey Beer Geeks, I'm super excited to say that I've come down to our great friends Malt Miller down in Swindon, UK. And it's like a Willy Wonka factory for homebrewers. I've had an amazing time filming with Andy, doing some homebrew videos for camera, and also exploring the incredible space that these guys have, the amazing homebrew setups they have, and the incredible stuff they have for sale on their website. We've selected some things while we were walking around that really excited us. Your Kvike yeast strain is in a strange place right now. There we go. That's
Look at this, a Kvike ring. Awesome.
So that's where like Kvike yeast, the Norwegian farmhouse yeast, sort of latches onto this, and you dry it out and just
exactly. Yeah. So you hang it up to dry once you've finished fermentation, and then the next one you dunk it in, and off you go again.
So it's just another way of sort of repitching your yeast.
Yeah. Store your yeast on this wooden thing. It's awesome.
I was wondering where you go with that with this wooden. Yeah, it's a thing, isn't it? Yeah. I got super excited when I was handed this. So this is made by Bootleg Biology, and it's a way of you trapping your own cultures of yeast from nature, and you can plate them and isolate them, and they'll even bank it for you. If you ask very nicely, you can get it to the States. That was super cool, but not quite as exciting as the fact that Malt Miller now have these, which is a Czech side pour tap. So when I finally start brewing lagers, once I'm brave enough, I'm going to be having myself some snits. So yeah, do check out all of that. These guys provide us with all of our homebrew equipment and do a fantastic job for all their customers. So please do give them a look while we start to nerd out about some homebrewing tips. So this is our top 5 series, and this week we're doing the boil. So on the surface of it, the boil is quite a simple process. It's a matter of sort of timing and good hops. But there are things that can go wrong, or some tweaks that you can make. One of the questions we get quite a bit is about first-wort hopping. So that's where you add the hops before you reach the boil. What's the supposed purpose of that?
Well, the theory is you get a smoother bitterness because you extract the alpha acids over a longer period.
That seems kind of mad to me. Is it actually true that isomerizing slower results in a different bitterness?
Well, who knows? Trial and error, I guess. But one other advantage on commercial kit, and maybe on your kit at home, is it helps prevent boilovers. So get the hops in early, and as you come up to boil, they help break the surface tension.
Right. So I've never come across a first-wort hopped beer that has been worse for it. So if you know it's going to make a safer boil, it's probably worth doing it.
Yes, indeed.
Something I've learned is really handy, particularly for beers where there's going to be a lot of hops going in, is the use of extract. So that means you have less vegetal matter in the boil, so less chance of vegetal flavours. It's also more efficient for storage and stuff like that. Is there any negative impact of using these extracts?
No, they're a really precise way of dialing in your bitterness, and on a commercial scale, it really helps with yield, because like a big West Coast IPA might have loads of bittering hops in it to hit a high alpha, a high IBU, and extract is much easier.
When we did our 100 IBU beer, which we did with Siren, we actually found, even though we were at 100 IBUs, the fact that we'd use extract, I don't know, was it the extract that might have meant that we didn't think it tasted that incredibly bitter? Can that impart smoother bitterness as well using the extract? I
mean, the extract is taken from a particular hop. It's extracted in a kind of usually distilled out, but it might impart a slightly cleaner bitterness.
Right. But mostly it's about knowing exactly the bitterness and the
precision.
feel you're putting in.
Yeah, you can calculate the bitterness you're going to get.
Right. On the topic of extract, we've had lots of questions in the comments about different kinds of hops that people are using. So there's extracts, bittering extracts, but there's also sort of aroma and flavour extracts. And then there's different hops like BBC hops, T90s, T45s. Can I throw some at you and you just tell me what they are and what their purposes are?
Go on.
What does it mean when a hop says BBC?
BBC is Boston Beer Corporation, so that's the brewery that helped Bathurst develop that product.
And is there any benefit to a BBC hop for a home brew?
They're super concentrated again. They're much softer. So really, like, we use them, and the dry hopping, we can shave a bit of time off because they disperse into the beer more quickly.
I see. What about HBC?
Well, that's the hop breeding company. Usually it's a prototype hop.
Right, so all hops were prototypes at some point. It's just before they got their name.
Indeed,
so it's a brand new experimental hop. And what about T90s?
So T90s are hop pellets.
Right. And what's the difference between T90 and a T45?
So a T90, they've removed 10% of the matter from the hopping.
The vegetal kind of matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. And T45 is?
They remove 55.
There you go. There you go. So that just means you're potentially going to get more concentrated aromas of the type that you might want and less of that vegetal.
Exactly. More intense, truer flavour from that hop.
There you go. So then we get into a trio of hop products. We've got the Flex, we've got the Incognito, and we've got the Spectrum. So they're all sort of extracts, but they have different uses, right?
Yeah, used at different stage of the brewing process.
Okay, so Flex is...
Flex is a super concentrated bittering extract.
Yep. And then Incognito...
Incognito is used, it's a liquid product, super sticky, resinous, used in the whirlpool.
Okay, so that's at a slightly lower temperature, all about the aroma.
Indeed.
And then you've got Spectrum.
Spectrum is a soluble product that can be added as part of the dry hop regimen.
Right, so that is trying to really amp up the aroma.
Pushing that volume
I guess
of
it's got
aroma.
a spectrum of different oils is what they're trying to get at there. Whew! So the last one is a big question because everyone sort of fights about it. There's not necessarily an answer, and that's pellet versus whole cone. So is there any benefit to either of those over the other?
Well, I think some brewers will say that from whole cone you get a more truer representation of the hop, but really the main thing is about using the right one for the application at hand.
Right, and for the kit that you have that might struggle with pellet.
Yeah, indeed. So at Elusive, our kettle doesn't deal with pellet at all, so we use whole cone in the kettle and we dry hop with pellet.
Right. It's interesting because what you just said there about getting a true expression of the hop, by using those pellets, you're zoning in at specific things you want from that hop. But yeah, you then lose, that lovely tradition of actually getting the hop flavors, which, some of them maybe we don't want, but also it's more true to
what was plucked from the vine.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of a philosophical thing as much as it is a which kit works or which one's better. So obviously we've talked almost exclusively about hops during this boil episode, but obviously there's loads of stuff that you can add to the boil that aren't specifically hop-derived products. So, there's the classic Belgian wit with orange and coriander and stuff like that. What other great things can you add to the boil?
You can think about it as like you're simmering something on the stove. You can add literally anything to a boiling pot of wort.
Yeah.
Herbs and spices are the obvious ones. We talked about hops. I love brewing. We talked about the pumpkin beer. All kinds of stuff went into that. Some cinnamon,
all
some
kinds of stuff.
Spices. So yeah, you can infuse lots of different flavours into your wort.
Yeah, and there've been some really unusual additions. Like you were telling me earlier about adding fenugreek.
Fenugreek is a great fake for maple syrup.
There you go. So that has like the maple syrup character, but it doesn't ferment out like the sugar. Of
maple syrup's really expensive, and it ferments out almost fully, leaving you very little of that maple character behind.
Right. And I've also seen a couple of breweries have used coriander in addition to sort of big dry hops because that's got either linalool or myrcene or something in it, so it's hyping
in theory helping to kind of push some of those aroma oils forward from your dry hop additions.
And generally with these things you're adding them towards the end of the boil because they might add, if you add orange peel, there's a lot of bitterness if you're going to boil that for a long time, so adding it at the end when you're going to get max flavour.
Yeah, or indeed you can whirlpool it.
Right. You've got a golden rule when it comes to hopping, which is that you can always add more, but you can't take away. Just talk me through that. Have you been burned in the past? Literally hot burned?
Yeah, I mean, particularly around if you're working with spices and things like that and brewing like wits and so on, you can't take it out. Easy way to ruin your beer is put too much of something in. You can always add more.
So you can just go back and dry hop again or whatever it is.
Exactly, yep.
You can't take those dry hops back.
Softly is the right way.
So I hope that's given you some new information about the boil and hopefully kind of made you think a little bit differently maybe about what we could do with the boil and the opportunities that are there. I mean, you saying that think of it like sort of a slow cook on the stove, like it's your chance to get a little bit kind of culinary with your home brewing if you really want to, and to play around with the timings and the different, endless different kinds of hops.
Lots of options
that you can add to your beers. In that video, we referenced a few of the home brews that we've done, our pumpkin spice latte and also our 100 IBU beer that we did with Siren. So if you want to watch those videos, they're coming up at the end on one of these sites.